Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good. Thank you for coming to our first workshop of the spring semester for our Chase Lounge series. Just a little bit about Chase Lounge. Chase Lounge is a workshop series that is spearheaded by the Student Conduct Office, Disability Services, as well as the Counseling Center. To just talk about the intersect of a lot of the different issues that we face, not only here on our campus, but at campuses throughout the nation. To kick off our spring term, we're going to talk about mental health in the African American community. As you know, that February the country celebrates Black History Month in this month, and so we wanted to kind of contribute to the programming that Pitt Community College has to offer by addressing a topic that usually gets swept under the rug. So today we have a panel of experts in their own respective fields that will provide information and answer questions that you may have. On your table, you'll have an index card. At any point, if you have a question that you would like to ask, please write your question down, raise your hand, I'll come by, pick it up, and I'll share it with our facilitator for today, and she will ask the question, okay? So, an introduction to our panelists for today. With us today, we have Kenneth Joyner, who is a licensed clinical social worker with Therapeutic Interactions Counseling Services. Ms. Cecilia Hoffler. She's the founder of You Glow Girl. And last but not least, we have Ms. Gloria Leak. She is a counselor in charge at DVRS, the Greenville unit, that is also with the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. And facilitating our question and answer session today is Ms. Felicia Bridges. She is an admissions counselor in our counseling services office.
Good to see everyone here on today, and I'm excited about the conversation that's going to take place. I would like to say our director of the Office of Disability Services, Ms. Lisa Kelly, she's a part of our team, but her son has the flu, so she wasn't able to be with us today, but she's a great support of our team. So we have some questions that we have our panelists are going to answer today. They've kind of seen the questions already, so hopefully we can be a part of a very healthy conversation about our community. Our first question, from a personal and professional perspective, what does mental health look like in the African American community?
Go ahead and answer. Okay, as you know, I am the founder of You Glow Girl, but a lot of times people don't really know what You Glow Girl does because it's just this weird thing, right? So, I guess to answer the question, You Glow Girl started with me. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder 2007, and this was during my stay at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. There was always the racial disparity. So much of what African Americans see on a daily basis have to endure, whether it's systematic oppression or the overt stereotypes that we're constantly battling. A lot of times those conversations aren't had in our own communities, and so we spend time trying to fit into a society that often doesn't cater to those needs. So from my personal experience, being able to grow from and glow from a very painful place, finding that light, finding that inspiration and that motivation to help people seek out counseling, seek out therapy within my community, it just gives a testament to where we are. Mental health is bleak for a lot of African Americans. Whether it's overly stigmatized or demonized or viewed as a weakness, mental health is not readily identified or even dealt with in the capacity that it needs to be. And in our current social climate, we're seeing more and more African Americans dealing with stress and depression or anxiety. So even though it looks bleak for us, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope and there is assurance in knowing that there are counselors out there like Ms. Gloria and Mr. Kenneth that assist us personally battling those demons in our communities.
Well, I find with our agency, because we assist individuals with disabilities, all types, to find employment, because we find that fulfilling employment is it's a way that people overcome, and sometimes there are so many barriers in the African American community, and some of it, the basis is mental health. There are resources out there, but because of some of the issues that she just said, we don't always seek out what's out there for us to help us, because there's a lot of misunderstanding, and traditionally we've tried to deal with our own things because we don't want to air our dirty laundry in public, and we don't want to embarrass our families and you know, some of the other things and stereotypes out there. We don't always access what's there to help us. And I would like to see there be more, and especially the institutions that we do trust, such as the church, you know, such as our own community resources, to get that education and find out about those resources so people can be pointed in the direction of where they can go and get help.
And pretty much I agree with everything they said. To kind of piggyback off of that, in terms of like from the perspective of the people that have mental health, I think it looks scary and foreign to a lot of people. It's similar to like putting foreign language in front of somebody and just telling them to go at it. A lot of times they don't even want to play with that. A lot of times people shy away from things that they fear. So they'll rather dismiss it, rather kind of just push it aside and push it along. From another perspective, outside looking in, I think noticing certain things can kind of, I guess, lead us to maybe providing those resources to people. So what it looks like from the outside in the home, a lot of times you see dysfunction. I deal with a lot of families. I used to do enhanced services, so I dealt with a lot of families, and a lot of times you see multiple people in the household with mental illnesses that haven't been, I guess, addressed and things like that. So you see a lot of dysfunctions within families. In the school system, you can see things like phobias and withdrawalness and things like that because they don't feel comfortable. A lot of times, a lot of African American kids come from backgrounds where there's a lot of chaos. So when they get in structured environments, it's foreign to them, it's scary. So they start to become withdrawn, or they attention seek. They do things to kind of get them placed in isolated environments. So they may go to ISS, they may go to detention, and people think, oh, this is just a bad child. Whereas they don't feel comfortable, so they're going to do whatever they need to do to get out of those type of environments. So those are some of the things that you see when you look at it and when you're inside of it, looking out.
Our next question is, what diagnoses are most prevalent in your scope of practice within the African American community? Start with Story.
I see a lot of substance abuse. I see a lot of depression, PTSD, schizophrenia, different types of illnesses like that, and bipolar disorder. Now, in some instances, I think that there are certain things that may be overdiagnosed. You know, just based on the fact that, okay, I see this, I see that, and I can quickly, you know, diagnose this, and we can get paid for that. And, you know, I just wish we weren't so quick to label people with things and to take our time to diagnose, because, you know, those labels follow people throughout their lives. But we also need to look at the fact that, you know, underneath some of it is a lot of, you know, just racism, stereotypes, a lot of different things that need to be addressed so that we're not perpetuating a labeling and all of that kind of thing. But, you know, also I just see that, you know, there are people that have a lot of trauma. That's a big buzzword these days. But the truth of the matter is that a lot of studies show that there are things that can happen to a person in their childhood that follow them out through the rest of their lives. And what one person may see as trauma, another person may think, well, that was nothing. But sometimes that is the thing that has, you know, shaped this person. And until you get down to the root of that and find out what that is, you know, you're not gonna be able to, over time, deal with that issue in that person. But you're gonna see it come out in some way. If it's not dealt with, it's gonna come out. And so we see things in people, and, you know, I just, you know, I'm amazed though at the resilience of people, even though they have all these things going on. And if you can just kind of get with them and kind of hear them out and see what it is, there is hope for recovery. People can go on to do you realize that a lot of the very creative people we see, they may suffer from some type of diagnosis, and they tend to be the people who are the most creative. And sometimes that creativity is looked at as something wrong, where it is really something that's very right, but you have to learn how to deal with it, you know? So I just see all these things and hear all these diagnoses, but I also see that people can overcome them.
I totally agree. When you were speaking about the individuals who are creative, I immediately started to think of Jennifer Lewis, who recently came out with her book, and how open she is now with speaking on her bipolar disorder diagnosis. Even though bipolar disorder is one of the overly diagnosed mental illnesses, there are a number of them: depression, anxiety, ADHD in smaller children. We're seeing that a lot now, especially with the young boys, young African American boys who are just unruly, and so they are labeled as having ADHD or some type of mental disorder, instead of finding the root cause of that particular behavior. But Ms. Jennifer Lewis was very, very candid about her struggles with bipolar disorder, and you just see so much of that creativity being lost in or wrapped in mental illness. And it's very important that we continue to dissect what is at the root cause of those diagnoses.
Well, in my scope of practice, I see a lot of the diagnoses that they say, particularly in children. I see a lot of ADHD, OED. ADHD is like the lack of impulse control and hyperactivity, inattentiveness. And OED is more defined, it's not listening to rules. Adolescents, I see a lot of social anxieties across like my caseload, and social phobia, social anxieties, just anxiety in general, and a lot of depression. When you get to like teenage years, I see a lot of that, a whole lot of that coming in. Again, adults, I see a lot of bipolar. I deal with schizophrenic patients as well, but I also see a lot of depression in the adults. A lot of personality disorders like narcissism and things like that. See a lot of adults. But at the base of a lot of it is trauma, like you said. So that is really my focus. I have a private practice, and that's the scope of my private practice. We serve people outside of that practice, but trauma is the focus because a lot of African American males deal with issues that I guess one would not maybe consider trauma, but it is trauma. You think of trauma and PTSD, and you look at like war violence, and you look at sexual abuse, but I mean fights, domestic violence, all those things get wrapped up to the top of the trauma, and they weigh on people. And because we don't shine a light on it like we do war vets and things like that, they just feel like, well, I'm supposed to fight through it. They're taught I'm supposed to fight through to deal with it. And those situations end up showing out as other things like depression and anxiety and things like that. So those are what I see. Those are the diagnoses for us.
We're gonna go back to Kenneth. What are some of the barriers that you see faced by individuals in regards to mental health?
like I said, kind of that narrative, especially in black males, is when you get taught to be a male, you get taught certain things like not showing weakness, not showing emotions, and things like that. But as she said before, I think she was saying, like, if you hold those things in, they have to come out some way. And what happens is, later down the road, when they come out, they don't necessarily have to have a trigger. So if you hold them in, then your body starts releasing them in random situations, and then you may not know the root of the situation. So you may look at it as something's just off, I need to go see the doctor, and you may dance around it for years. You may dance around it for months, years at a time, decades. And that's something that is a barrier. And then on top of that, you have situations like, I guess, traditional values, like not trusting and things like that, not trusting systems and things like that. A lot of times you see, I guess, people from certain communities, certain African American communities, they'll receive help from professionals, but a lot of times they get taught not to trust professionals with their intimacy, with their intimate information and lifestyles and things like that. So when it comes to like going into somebody and spilling, I guess, your heart out and spilling your everything on the table, you're vulnerable. And with the past histories, like race-related things and trauma-related things, you get taught not to open up because you don't know what kind of situation you're looking at. You don't know what they're doing, what they're gonna do. So you're receiving help, but it's not as if they're coming and giving you something. You still have to give them something first to get something in return. A lot of people, they don't do that. They got the condition.
The barriers that individuals face.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, I see it, spirituality can be a double-edged sword. We tend to trust the church, we trust spiritual things because we believe that there's something outside ourselves, bigger than us, that, you know, we can depend on, you know, to come to our need when we need it. And I think that's a good thing. I'm a woman of faith myself. However, I think sometimes in our organized religious endeavors, there's a lack of understanding. And I think sometimes the way we say things lead people to believe that if I had enough faith, if I trust the Lord enough, that's just the devil trying to get me. And believe me, I have heard people say that, well, that's just the devil and I'm just not gonna. And you know, and it's so interesting, you know, doctors, they're just gonna give me some medicine and they're just gonna do this, that, and the other, and I just don't trust these psychiatrists, and they'll get inside your head and they'll do this, that, or the other. Well, I was saying to her, if you break a bone, are you gonna sit there and say, Lord Jesus, I want you to heal my bone in my leg, and you're not gonna go and get that set and properly taken care of? Okay, it is your brain. Your brain controls the rest of your body. Your mind, your brain, it controls you. You can have physical manifestation of mental health things. And sometimes, you know, if you would deal with what that is, that would, you know, resolve itself. I'm not saying the church is bad. I'm not saying the church is wrong. I just think there's a lack of understanding. And I think, you know, if we're going to look at it like that, that higher power that we believe in, don't we believe that the higher power gave the individuals that are there to help? Is that not the root of their power, to help? I mean, that's, if you're going to look at it that way. And sometimes when I talk to individuals, that's, you know, I have to learn how to make those connections for them. And then once they look at it that way and they can kind of see, okay, well, you know, that may be, then they open up. I have had grown men sit in there in my office and be talking, and they don't even realize, and then all of a sudden it'll just come out, you know. And I'm thinking, wow. And you don't know what it is that you allowed to come out. And I think to myself, okay, that wasn't anything I did, thank you, because it took that to get that person to feel comfortable enough. Because my guy came in there, you know, I ain't talking to you, but smoking me up, you know, when they first came in. But after, and I get to know, we've got to be open. We've got to really be there to help one another. And if we're gonna do that, we've got to be understanding of it. You know, we've got to understand each other in that way. And you know, I was thankful that I could make him feel safe enough to come on out with that, you know. But we've got to be aware ourselves. We've got to have that education so that we can see what that is. You know, there's something underneath there. I don't know what it is, but let me ride with it for a minute. And then if I can do that, and then we can come together like that, we can really do some work then. You know, we just gotta just be more aware of things and get as much knowledge as we can, and then share that with each other.
So much of what the two panelists have already said literally is playing in my head. And it is the mistrust, it is the uneducation, and it is the lack of knowledge, knowing where to go to get the help that you need. So many of us in the African American community just don't know where to turn. We turn to our parishioners or our priests or our pastors, and then we see that we're going to be met with, you know, the stigma that she was speaking of, just the overall, you know, assumption of a lack of faith, not believing enough. And then when you go to get the treatment that you need, you're still met with, okay, well, do I take the medication, or do I just believe God to heal me? And I want us to come to a place in the African American community and just across other cultures, other races, to just be comfortable with a marriage of the two, faith and therapy. There has to be a marriage, a connection of theology and therapy. Without that, I feel like a lot of the misgivings from the African American community and just a lot of that trust and those barriers are going to remain there. So much of our movements, whether it was civil rights or just finding a place to congregate, was done in the church, like you said. And so when you see that, that's another barrier. But yeah, it's just silence. It's just the silence, that power of not being able to talk about what's really going on with you. Your family members keeping you quiet. You never being able to share anything because, oh, well, that's Uncle so-and-so, and even though he might have touched me, then I don't want to tell Mama because of something. Like, there's the power in silence, and once we get past that and we start to speak up and speak out, then we start to break down those barriers.
Good information. Yes.
Just a reminder, if you have questions, please remember to write them on your index card, because at the conclusion of the question from the facilitator, we will pass those questions forward so everybody have an opportunity to engage in the conversation.
You all mentioned some barriers such as silence, stigma, lack of information, mistrust, and possibly the lack of resources. How can we overcome these barriers?
New Glow Girl is setting out to do that right now. I have a lot of people who come to me from seeing YouTube videos or seeing social media posts, and they'll actually contact me via the inboxes or the emails that are out, and I take time to actually figure out what's going on with them. And since I'm not a licensed professional yet, I send them to licensed professionals. I send them to actual facilities where they can get the help. It's called the Lighthouse Initiative, because even though my glow is bright and I'm this shining person trying to bring people in, I'm just a person. And because I'm a person with mental illness, sister gotta make sure she all right. So I love people, but I am not going to like overly exhaust myself either. So I will kind of be like, hey girl, okay, I want you, now I'm gonna pass you to the right, because there are things, there are resources that I just do not have as one person. We can, make the conversation, we can start the conversation, but we also have to be mindful that there are people who need resources that we just do not have personally, so we gather that information and we share it with others. what the Lighthouse does is it basically spotlights a mental facility or a treatment center that's geared towards, whether it's grief counseling or rehabilitation facilities. Those people who are certified and trained, they get the access to whoever wants that information. So they see these places where they can go, and then they make the call.
I would like to see, one of the things that I would like to see is more licensed or more African American professionals. I don't feel that there are enough of them, but now I will also say that I have witnessed that a lot of times we are suspicious of our own in certain fields.
Yes.
And I think it is more like if I'm talking to somebody else and I tell them, they're not where I can see them and they won't, say something to somebody I know. I think there is the thing, it goes back to not airing your dirty laundry or not telling my business, And then I'm not sure that that's the reason we don't trust each other. And I have been in places and have experienced that sometimes I won't be the first choice of our own people. And not that, whoever a person is comfortable seeing, that's who they need to see. But I don't know. Maybe it's that we think, okay, we've had shared experiences. They may not be any more equipped to handle my stuff, but I would think maybe it would offer a bit of comfort that you're talking to somebody who may have some of the same experiences that you do. But I don't see a lot of African American males in that position. And it may be that males, now I'm gonna be honest, males seem to be more comfortable with me than other females. And I don't know if there's a reason for that. I have done some research about African American males, and I think, and I don't want to say this as broad, but some tend to, I guess, find that it's a nurturing type thing, and they feel more comfortable talking to a female. I didn't think that would be, but I noticed that the males would choose to have me more so than females would. But I just think too, let's trust one another. Let's see how we can be of help, because maybe we do understand some things a little bit more than some of our colleagues and counterparts may, as far as knowing about our own experiences. So, let's try to trust each other a little bit more. Let's try to help one another get where we need to be. Put those resources out there. I know a lot of churches do have resource fairs. There are resource fairs that, happen. We need to get out there. The mental health community needs to get out there and be a part of this. We will for medical needs, but I'm talking about mental health needs. Not be silent about the things we struggle with, so that people can see, maybe she has, does have some information and can understand my situation, or maybe he can understand my situation because he's dealt with the same thing. There is a program called peer mentoring, where individuals who have had certain issues come alongside with individuals, and they help professionals to, give that person the support that they need. So just have all that information available and out there, and let's dig into why we don't have more representation in the field of mental health, so that, people will have that opportunity to talk to someone that may understand their situations a little better.
on the grand scheme, I feel like the main solution is going to be changing the narrative of what normal is like. That's the big issue for African American culture and for, people in general. Like, we have to change the narrative of what the normal is. So we got to take away words like crazy. We got to take away words like, different. We got to take away those type of words, and we got to put everybody in the box of normal first. And then after we do that, we got to go in and we got to make it normal to see these type of services. If Russell Westbrook and Dwayne Wade can put these clothes on and make kids wear these stuff, we can change the narrative normal in terms of mental health. We can make it the norm. We just have to work at it. And one of the biggest ways to do it, in my opinion, goes back to what you were saying about spirituality. The majority of people follow religions as law. And even if they don't agree with it, they will follow it. They will go ahead of it, and they won't question it. Bringing those two together, collaborating with the church and with spiritual affiliations is going to be a big part of that push if we can make that happen, because, like you said, like, we get taught to kind of separate, I guess, the physical with the faith and the spiritual and things like that, and we have to connect the two.
Yeah.
If we separate it, we're going to be at conflict the whole time. Like, we'll be at conflict on a regular basis because they go hand in hand. Like, you can say that, like, you're trying to separate yourself from the flesh, but you still operate in the flesh every day. You go out and make money, you try to make money, and you try to do what you got to do. So you have to take care of that, because if that is able to take your morale down, able to take your emotions and your feelings and change them around, you have to connect the two. So if you're gonna do that, we have to collaborate more with spirituality. It's a line, it's a division there right now in most cases, and we have to build on that. We have to build on that collaboration. So that's going to be a big solution if we can push that forward.
Absolutely. And not to take away from that segment or the sentiment, but I just want to make it clear that we're not saying that everyone who has mental illness believes in a higher power, because there are people who are agnostic. And so whatever, or atheist, whatever they find strength in, and whatever they find solace in, we have to use that to our advantage to make sure that they feel that there's a space for them as well. Mental health doesn't just include those of faith, but without faith. And we just have to make sure that we're affording everyone the same opportunity.
And to build on that, I'm glad you said that, because to build on that, a lot of the tenets from therapy and therapeutic approaches come from spirituality.
Right.
They can help you. Anxiety, in the Eastern world, they teach meditation and things like that, which is, the root of a lot of different, different variations of meditation. Like prayer would be considered a variation of meditation, going inside yourself and building and things like that. Those are already underneath, so they connect spiritually. It's just, that's a bigger conversation for another day. It's just that Western world practice was kind of taught to kind of separate those two, and Eastern world practice kind of bring them together. So if we can kind of follow that mode, then I think we can make a big jump.
Absolutely.
I see a lot of head nodding, so I'm thinking y'all enjoying the conversation. We're going to move forward. We know that there are certain people within the African American community that participate in receiving services. What about the population that choose not to receive services? Why? First of all, can you identify those group of people and why you may think they may not seek services?
Well, what's the reason for people not going?
Yeah, like if you can identify within African Americans, maybe a group that choose not to receive services, and why?
That's a tough one. It kind of goes back to the barrier question. It's going to be the people that are unaware, the people that have been taught to kind of combat those type of structures. Like I said, for me, I see a lot of people that I may see them the first time, and they come in and say, I'm trying it out, but I don't know. And when I dig into it, it's because they don't trust it. They don't trust it. They went here, bad experience here, bad experience, so they start to kind of just write it off. And then, like I said, people that just don't know.
Right.
They just don't know this is what it is. Like some people may think, when they hit therapy, they think shrink. They think I'm going to lay on a red chair, and somebody's going to ask me to go from kindergarten to 12th grade.
Right.
And they don't know that a lot of times you guys, in most of approaches, you got it, baby. You're the expert. I'm not coming here telling you what you need to do with your life. We don't offer advice. We just facilitate. It's just an outside view, marriage counseling and things like that. We don't come here to say, oh, you need to stop doing this to her, you need to stop doing this to him. It's, what are you saying, what are you saying? Let's stop and let's hear the other person. Y'all need to take care of things. So those misconceptions are, I guess people with those misconceptions are people that don't buy in.
I just think, you know, for people to people, I mean, when we break down all of it, most of us have some, you know, a whole lot more in common than we do, you know, differences. And, you know, the agency that we have a very diverse group of people that we see. And I find that, you know, most of us want some of the same things. It's mainly our perceptions of things. It's mainly our understanding and awareness. And when you've got groups of people that don't feel that they fit into the mainstream of people, they are on the fringes, that's where you will normally see, you know, people who won't participate or come in. You've got to let people know that there's a seat at the table for everybody. You know, you've got to be aware. I take every opportunity to get diversity training. You've got to know what's important to this group, that group, or whatever. And it won't be the same for everybody. And so you got to treat people like individuals too. You've got to get where that person is. It doesn't matter what you know about this group of people or whatever. When that person is sitting in front of you, they want to be the only thing you're thinking about. And I don't blame them. I would want to be the same thing. And, you know, the golden rule, I'm sorry, we all have something. We all want to matter. We all want somebody to listen to what, you know, it is that, you know, is impacting our ability to function in this world. And I think if the mindset can just be there and let people know that you are a part of, you belong, you know, come in here and let's see what we can do to make you feel like you can function here. And see, because our main focus at what we have is work. See, it's easier for me to get that, go there, when if you're dealing with family issues and different things like that. But see, I realize because of training and the other, that I've got to go there too, and be able to do all that. So you've just got to be so open-minded and to you know, don't feel shocked. I guess because I'm old, I'm not shocked at anything I hear anymore. Because people are there and they'll tell you, but if you look like it shocks you, or you look like, you know, oh, I don't know how to deal with this, and they won't go any further with you. And I mean, they're sitting there waiting to feel, can I be safe here? Can I say what I need to say? And so that's why I try to dabble in all of it. I do private stuff, and I also work for an agency. But I think that gives me a better foot in both of them, because I see so many different people and different issues. But the main thing is just connecting with somebody to let them know that you care about what they're dealing with.
Just going back to the question where it said, why do you think some within the African American community choose to opt out of utilizing services? They are willfully making the choice not to go. And a lot of what that means is mentally, they've made up their minds that mental health is not important to their physical health, to their spiritual health, to their own well-being or development. And so with that mind state, they're not seeking out the opportunities. They're not looking for the resources, even if they're there. And a lot of times they don't know that they're there. But when they do, and they still opt out, then they're making the choice. A lot of what we think, and my bishop says this, a lot of what we think we feel, and a lot of what we feel we do, and a lot of what we do becomes habit. And so it starts in the mind, and if we can access that part of a person and change that narrative, change that perception of making a conscious effort, conscious choice to do what's right for you mentally so that you'll physically be well, then it'll make a change.
My last question. Yes.
For the sake of time, if you have a question, there's people who ask a question. Anybody else have any questions? Not that it's what I just want to make sure.
Okay.
There's some people who-
Do you feel people in the African American community should be treated for PTSD due to mass incarceration as well as systematic racism? If so, why? And why is it being made available?
Absolutely.
I was thinking about some of the people that I get that come from, I mean, I deal with guys that have been in there for 20, 25 years plus, and just hearing the stuff that they experience on a regular basis is mind blowing. And like you said, I have to keep that face, but I mean, in my head, I'm thinking like, it's no way that you can just move on and embrace that. So, in terms of that, in terms of racism, things like that, yes, it needs to happen, it needs to be there. And as far as, I think the second part is, why isn't, did it say why isn't available?
Yes, why isn't it
Okay.
being?
And the answer to that, I really can't answer that 100%, but except for to say nobody has, I guess, blazed that trail enough, and that's something that needs to happen. We need to put those type of resources in place. Because like I said, if you shine the light on something, and I guess it's important, especially in terms of dollars in this country, they'll build it. So veterans, they have, like when they come back and they have that issue, you have something that you can go to just to check if you have an issue coming back with something. We don't have that for our, I guess, community, so to speak, for certain situations, and we need it. And we definitely have to blaze that trail if this is one of the concerns that we want to take home.
You mentioned that your agency specializes in trauma.
Correct.
You're talking about blazing the trail. Is that something that your agency is trying to do?
You know it. You know it. I mean, that's my, I'll disclose this, that's my main purpose. My main purpose is to attack that issue, attack I guess the issue that's not being the hidden issue, the invisible issue, the thing that's not being addressed in a community that I relate to, that's being addressed in communities that I don't necessarily relate to. I see things and structures in place for people that I'm not necessarily a part of that population like that, the veterans, and it's effective. I've seen the effectiveness of it. So I'm looking at it like, well, I can relate. I have people that are in this population that are around me 24/7. I'm a part of that population, so this could be me. I'm going to structure this just like that, if not better. So that's the driving force behind everything I do. So,
And honestly, the mental health field is gonna have to catch up with that, because at this time, you know, just because someone has been incarcerated that's not necessarily a criteria that is looked at for PTSD. But the truth is that a lot of people who have been incarcerated had issues that they really should have been dealing with before they actually went to prison. So there are a lot of times issues underneath there. And like my agency, when we look, I mean, sometimes individuals are referred to us, and the only thing that we know from the beginning is that they've been incarcerated. And what we have to say, just being incarcerated is not a diagnosis, but we will bring that person in and do evaluations to try to see what it was or what may be going on that is a diagnosis that would allow us to help them. And we try to include as many people as we can, not weed people out. We try to, include them. But what people have to understand referring them is that it has to be more, and you have to know more than just that person was incarcerated. And so, you know, if you can include that and look at institutional, you know, issues and why that may cause PTSD, and have that be a diagnosis or make that a part of one, then, you know, of course that might be. But trauma is trauma, and when you look at it and if you connect it with that, you know, it's still something to deal with. And I'm glad, you know, we have individuals who are out there trying to deal with things like that. But we've got to catch up in the mental health field with issues that are affecting and impacting people's lives.
What are y'all doing for people that are former offenders and not a part of your program? How are y'all helping them with employment if they're not a client of your organization?
Well, if a person is not, if they're not a client of our organization, I mean, we don't have a mechanism by which to help them. I mean, if I have somebody that comes in to see me, if there's information that I can give them, whether they become a client of ours or not, I give them that. I make them make resources available, and we do that. You know, there are job fairs from all kind of employers have things, and you have to be aware of other resources in the community. But our agency, most different agencies have funding sources that, you know, you have to find that that person, you know, fits into that criteria in order to serve them, and that's how you continue to get money to help people. But we can't, we have to serve the individuals that come through our agency first, but, you know, we try to help anybody that comes through the door.